Well, today we're going to be looking at a fundraise for this AI meets EdTech pitch deck. And right now we are looking at a pre-seed deck and we are trying to raise 360K is what we're looking at. One of the most important things that we are seeing right now, and I'm curious what you think as you're watching it, because we've lived through these trends. You're a nine-time founder, you've exited 5 times, you're the CEO, founder of Startups.com. You've pretty much seen it all in terms of all the cycles. You were there in the beginning when the internet kind of became a thing when nobody really knew what it was. You're out there explaining it to people, became a very successful career. I don't talk about this enough, everyone, but Will actually is a unicorn founder. If you look at the revenue he's generated and what he's done, and so it's kind of rarefied air to be able to pick his brain. But Will, what are your thoughts on right now this whole AI trend? Is it here for good? You see founders, really, a lot of them understand it. Some are just trying to raise money because they think, oh, if I have an AI company, I'll raise money. That's not always a good thing. Like, just generally speaking, you've been through this before. What are you thinking?
I gotta say, I think it's gonna live up to the hype. In fact, I think it's going to surpass the hype. And let me dig into that. When I started one of the first internet companies in 1994, it was one of the first web design companies. I would go out, like you're saying, Ed, and I would talk to these CEOs of these huge companies that became our clients, and I would tell them the internet is coming, like Paul Revere, like the internet is coming, the internet is coming. And no one believed me. No one believed me. They thought I was totally full of it, and they had no idea what I was talking about, and I looked like I was 12. So with that said, it's one of the few times where the actual platform, being the internet, exceeded the hype. Of all the things that guys like me were running around talking about back then in the inception era, it went way beyond what any of us could possibly have guessed. I think AI is even more so because I think AI compounds. So I think it will live up to the hype. And I'm not really like I'm one of those people where I'm like, I've been doing this so long, you'd think I'd just be forever cynical. But the truth is, every now and again, something comes along, and I'm like, nah, that's pretty legit.
Are we looking at sort of an inflection point when it comes to, let's say, mobile back in the day, when you just had to start adopting mobile? Like that was just one of the things, like if you didn't have it,
Yeah.
nobody really took you seriously. Is that the same with AI right now?
Yeah, I think to some degree. And also with AI, there are so many like exponential factors to it. We released some features recently using some AI, and like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most mind-blowing AI usage and one being like the least, ours was at like a 3. And I only say that as more of a reverence to what AI truly is capable of than what we did. And even then, it's Eddie, you work with the product all the time. It kind of feels like magic. And so what I would say at this point is I think for a lot of companies that are trying to like align with the trend that is I would say it's a good idea. And I'm not a get on the bandwagon kind of guy. But Ed, you tell me this. For investors, my experience has been it's better to look at what they're investing in and be in that space than to try to change their thesis and have them come out to you.
Completely agree. At the same time, I can say where it becomes dangerous right now, just recently, I think in the past day, Y Combinator, they've got this sort of famous list of requests for startups, the
Yeah.
different things they're looking at. Many founders think, oh, I'll just pivot right into one of those requests for startups.
Yeah.
And I think that AI is broad enough that it's transforming everything. But going on saying, oh, Y Combinator is looking for startup in this, let's just pivot right in that. I think that's a really bad idea.
Yeah, it was a lack of idea. You just don't see that many great companies that were a result of someone telling them to go do that. I'm sure it's happened somewhere. There's been so many companies that have been started. I'm sure there's a thread that ends like that. But generally speaking, you go after what you care about, and if it happens to be on trend, even better. Now, that said, when you're fundraising, Ed, you and I make this joke like every week when we record this session. No matter what the project is right now, it's with AI. And I think what we're going to find probably in less than a year, Ed, is the with AI starts to become so trite. It's kind of like going back to 1994 when it was like, we're now on the internet. And at some point, it's like, yeah, dude, everybody's on the internet, right? So I think within a year or so, maybe two, saying that we are an AI something, applied to your startup is going to be fairly meaningless. And I would argue we're getting there pretty quick.
Right. But at the moment, you kind of have to stay with the zeitgeist of what's going on.
Yeah, and I just think it's table stakes at this point. It's again, it's kind of like if I were to fast forward into 1997, I'm going to this huge time machine here, but if I were to go into 1997 and say someone saying, "Hey, we're on the internet now," it still happened, but it was kind of assumed by then, like the pixie dust had worn off, and people are like, "Yeah, of course you're on the internet. What are you doing on the internet?" Now we've gotten you, Ed. You and I have used this the AI pixie dust.
Right.
it's legal, but with AI. It's medical, but with AI. And it's like, okay, like number one, you didn't build any of that AI. And number two, every single person that's going to build anything in this space, of course, is going to use AI. How else would they do it? So again, I think yeah, you got to differentiate beyond the pixie dust.
Well, founders, all of you watching, and for those who are going to be watching later on YouTube, you're in the right spot. We are looking at an AI company, AI plus mentorship for personalized project-based learning. Before we get into that, Will, this is what I always do with every single one of these pitch decks that gets sent. We put it through our analyzer. We've been building our own AI models for that.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to point out, everyone, we have an investor matching tool. And I know many of you have already seen this before, but we'll mention that we're building our own set of AI tools. These are all the founders that I've been helping and their fundraise campaigns on our platform here, where you can automate your pitch, your outreach, get your deck analyzed, verified investors, everyone. This is not just us going and saying, hey, let's just find a whole bunch of lists. We actually scrub the list. We make sure that our data is good, garbage in, garbage out. So we make sure that we're going to get you the best data, train our AI for it. And what I've done is I've uploaded it. And Will, I just wanted to say something super quick. I'm going to press this, analyze my pitch deck. Will, one of the shots, I think it was just a founder who was very frustrated, said, hey, I could have just gotten your analysis from ChatGPT and uploaded the pitch deck and had it done all myself, which I wanted to retort, but I was like, I understand where they come from, try to empathize, but no, you're not. You're not going to get this type of data just from ChatGPT because, well, maybe you want to give everyone a little information. How much work and training data we put into our own AI.
Yeah, and look, here's what the reality is: whether you're using ChatGPT, whether you're just doing a Google search, you can get names and numbers of investors. We don't have like some secret handle on only we know where investors are. There's a few things that are more important. See, a lot of people will go into this and they'll say, "Hey, again, I've got this list of investors." Problem isn't whether you can find the data. It's who to talk to first, who's an actual fit. Because there's hundreds of thousands of investors. You only want to be talking to somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 100 of them, right? If not less. There's few as possible that are highly focused. So what we're doing is we're taking all the data, we're looking at your deck, and we're stack ranking exactly who you should be talking to. I don't think a lot of people appreciate this part. And again, whether you use our system or not, this information holds the same. The fact that there are hundreds of thousands of investors is a problem, not an opportunity. Because a lot of people look at it and go, oh, I want to talk to thousands of investors. No, you do not. You do not. You want to talk to tens of investors. You want to talk to the tens of investors that are the absolute best fit. Because if you think about it like this, there's the investors that are at the top of the funnel, so to speak, that are the absolute best fit, like 100% matches. And as you start to radiate outward of those, if you even knew how to stack rank them, the probability of them investing gets geometrically worse. Geometrically, right? It doesn't even just get just geometrically worse. It goes from maybe a tiny hope not being the top, but somewhere as you go down to why did he even email this person? A big part of this is telling you who to go after first. The second part is actually to figure out who to talk to. Right. If you're like, oh, well, I've got the email to A16 or I've got the email to Sequoia. You have an email to one person. There's like hundreds of people that work there. Like who specifically should you be talking to? Who opens their emails, by the way? Even if it sounds like this is exactly the person to talk to, who's the person you should be talking to? And most people would have no idea because they haven't done this. We've got the benefit of thousands and thousands and thousands of fundraisers, so we can actually see specifically who you should be talking to and who opens their emails, which is pretty important.
Right here, the pitch deck got loaded. We can see the investor matches. Well, I'm also going to argue that once you get the top matches and you're going through, let's say generously, let's say you get through the first 100. We got 2,281 potential fits and they're going to change percentages. I'm going to say that if you're not getting hits off that top tier, you should be looking at what is it within my own startup? What signals am I getting? What's the marketplace? And you're going to get a really good idea how in general the market's going to respond. And I think that's a learning curve that founders get through. It's not just, it's like cold calling. It's a law of averages, Will. If I just contact 1,000 people, eventually I'm going to hit that 1% that's going to get there. That's not what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's also the worst logic when it goes into this. Just to be clear, this is a numbers game, but it's a low numbers game.
Right.
What you want to focus on are reaching out to tens of people at a time with highly specific messages, not just, you know what, screw this, I don't have time for this. I'm just going to BCC 1,000 people and let the good ones come back to me. That works never. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never, ever, 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 ever seen that work. In fact, it usually backfires on you. It actually makes it so you can't raise capital. That's a whole other story.
And this is what I like to do. I like to click on the investor and I like to just understand. So the AI has done a customized thing to this pitch deck. And then you get all this more information and the industries, and you can go research them. If you really want to know if our stuff is on point, go check it out. Go actually research, go to their website.
Yeah.
But case in point, Will, this 100% match. We got 14 contacts, right here, right away. But what's great about this is if I say send pitch, what happens is based on our responses and who we know is there, the title, and how much they have responded to other pitches in the past, we know that Enzo here is going to be the best person verified. That means their email address actually does exist. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not going to be. And I'm just saying it's a work in progress, but we're doing everything we can to train it as much as possible every single day.
Yeah, the one thing we can't do is make it so he responds to you.
Right.
People are like, I emailed this person, he didn't respond. I'm like, dude, there's a limit on what our technology can do. Convincing people to talk to you is not one of them yet.
The whole point is don't waste your time on all the grunt work, which is the promise of AI, the stuff that slows you down, and use these tools. And again, as Will says, it's not just us. There are plenty of ways to get this done. You can use your LLMs out there if you want, but at least do yourself a favor. Start using the tools so you can spend more time on the important things of your fundraise, such as going out and getting traction or refining your pitch deck or working with community, networking your way. That's the way to go.
Yeah, this process has just historically been super tedious. I know, some folks are in the audience now and I've been seeing them go through it. It's just a nightmare. It's just about trying to make good use of your time. But the other side of it is also make sure that when you do send an email or you do some outreach, however you reach out to the investors you want to talk to, they're just talking to the right person. That makes a night and day difference.
Well, I want us to really push the pitch deck, knowing that everybody else out there is gunning for that AI spot. Anybody can slap AI in there. So we're going to get a lot more critical. As Will said, everyone, it's not as novel as it was, or you actually might think for investors out there. Sure, it may be new to you, but investors, they've seen it all. And just imagine the hundreds of pitch decks that they get, sometimes on a weekly basis, that say AI. So, Will, let's start off with right here. AI mentoring for personalized project-based learning. What do you think about right away up front?
I think it's very direct. I think it says this is exactly what it is. So I don't hate it. And I don't, I mean, let's start off negative. It doesn't excite me the way I want it to, given what it is. But let's dig into this a little bit more. I don't want to judge it too much. I will say this. It's not cryptic. And usually what we get on this cover page is cryptic, where people, put like, empowering students globally. And so there's no point in putting any information on this pitch deck, on any of the slides, that is even 1% cryptic. We have a very few words that we can use. We want to make sure that everyone understands exactly what they mean.
I'm sure we can improve this, but as Will was saying, at least you didn't create friction right off the cover page, which a lot of pitch decks do. Online learners lack personalization and human support. We got stats. Online education market is growing, 270 million learners. 675 of them report dissatisfaction. Online course completion rates are really low. We've been tracking on that for quite some time now. Overall, let's dig into it.
Yeah, okay, so a couple things. And folks in the audience, I want you to know this. If your market is already sizable, then the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, if you will, doesn't matter. So if the market's already $300 billion, it doesn't really matter how much bigger it's getting because it's already $300 billion. Ed, I don't know what the exact number is, but I think once your market size is over 10 billion, 50 billion, what have you, the growth rate is no longer an issue unless there's something unique about the growth rate that's tied to what your opportunity is.
I agree. The only time I've ever paid attention to things like that is if there was a sudden explosion or people overshot. What normally happens is we don't know. This is predicting the future. As an investor, I want to know what the market is right now. Doesn't really matter to me.
So let me pause on that for a second. The only time that we would use compound annual growth rate or the rate that's growing in general is if the market's not there yet. If the market's not there yet. So for example, if I were launching, let's say the Apple Vision Pro, their VR headset, what I might say, again, I'm making these numbers up, but what I might say is okay, the market right now is $150 billion, not big, but it's growing at 170% per year, which is going to make it X billion dollars within a few years. That's when you need a growth rate to show how the market's going to be where you want it is. If it's already at 300 billion, you're already there. You don't need to explain. You don't even need to lean on the market size. And Ed, the other thing I'm going to we'll get into when we get to the market size slide is I wonder if that $300 billion involves a lot of stuff that they don't sell.
I met with one of the founders out there, and I'm going to call him up by name. His name is Marc. Marc did a really great job in kind of going through the gauntlet with me because he sort of pitched me live. And then I kept interrupting him, saying, time out, start with the problem, let's go back. And he kept going at it. And instead of getting flustered, he just kept trying. And he said, oh, I know, I always do this and I'm learning. And he admitted, I can't see the forest through the trees, right? And so he understood and he appreciated. And that's the type of founder that I appreciate being able to work with. It's the same thing here. What we're going to do is we're always trying to put the same sort of principles in everybody. And we're not trying to be mean. We don't want to cause you undue stress. We're not trying to put you under duress. This is not Navy SEALs training. We're talking about we're here to help you,
Yeah.
and we will continually coach and help you. And so we appreciate any founder that goes and steps up to the plate and says, hey, I want to have you, quote, roast my deck.
Right. Founders, if you want to talk about what's a great way to receive feedback, have every response be a question, right? Instead of trying to defend, engage. And this is, by the way, this also works great with when you're in the pitch process. So when someone says, "Hey, this slide doesn't work," help me understand why it doesn't work.
Right.
Well, you're not articulating the problem well enough. What would articulate the problem well enough? Well, you'd have to be more specific about like who the consumer is. What are my options there? What would you use? By just saying, "Well, this is why I did it. Well, this is why I did it." You learn nothing. But as you continue to kind of draw out those questions, you learn everything. And also, here's the best part about it. Best part, like pro tip for all my friends getting into this in the founder game early. If you have no idea what you're doing, which is most of us, when you're getting into this, asking questions is a great way to never be on the hook for not knowing something, because you can never be wrong with a question, right? It's just something I used all the time early in my career. Okay, so Ed, back to the problem statement. There are a lot of challenges with this problem statement, so I want to make sure it gets its due. We say 270 million learners, 40% of 675 million. You already told me it's 270 million learners. You don't need to tell me what percentage it is, because you just told me what the number is. Report dissatisfaction, citing lack of interaction, poor course design, distractions, and time constraints. We have to pause there. Lack of interaction. Ed, would you underline everything from lack of interaction to the end of that sentence, time constraints? This is the problem statement. That portion right there is the problem statement, okay? Now, where this gets a little bit funky is we then jump into another one saying online course completion rates 10 to 15% fail to complete. Well, the issue is we want to bring lack of completion, lack of integration, poor course design, distractions, and time constraints. That's 5 different things, if I counted that correctly, into a problem statement. That is a recipe for disaster.
Yep.
Let me explain. At most investors, really any humans, will be able to meaningfully digest 1 or 2, sometimes 3 factors of a problem. But as you add more, as you start saying, but this and this and this, thinking that the more stuff I stack on top of this, the more meaningful and useful the problem becomes, it's the polar opposite. Every additional thing you stack on there, there's 2 things that ruin you. Number 1, it takes away from the focus. You just listed 5 things. Well, which one's important? They're all important. Really? Because if you miss one, then does that mean you're going to fail? Well, no. I mean, I could probably just get away with, this block. Okay, then they're not all equal important. The exercise that we do, we take all of them, everything you got, and we stack rank from most important to least important, which is a great exercise. Ed, have you gone through this with any founders yet, trying to figure out, where the heaviest pain point is?
I do it all the time. Took the page from your book. You're the one that taught it to me. I said, all right, so let's rank the problems that you want to solve. So I will literally count and say, okay, you've introduced like 5 concepts. And
Right.
will I understand why founders do it? Because they want to load the deck as much as possible,
Yeah.
or load their pitch and say, man, we're going to be valuable, just as you said. And I said, from an investor's perspective, you have to understand, we don't believe you're going to be able to solve all those problems right out of the gate with our initial check. And so we're worried. We need you to focus. And so I asked the founder, as you encourage us to, stack rank. And I will ask questions like, what do you think you're best at? What are you most passionate about? Where's the lowest lying fruit? Where can you get the traction? Start there. We will accept that eventually you're going to solve all of them, and you've got added bonuses that you can put in the other parts of your pitch deck. But let's start with your best foot forward. And I do this all the time.
Yep, I agree. And so from my standpoint, what I think is most important is 1, 2, maybe 3 problems at most on this slide, because all people can remember. And the second part that I was going to say is that as you add more stuff, it makes it really hard to believe that you're going to be the best at all those things. So if you say, and this, and this, and this, I'm like, well, 1, I can't comprehend all that. And 2, there's no way you're going to be the best at all of those things. And frankly, if you're not the best at number 1 and number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 20 don't matter. So focus your attention to show me that you're going to be the best at 1 and 2, and then the other stuff will come naturally. You lose by adding more stuff. Just keep that in mind.
Let's review, Will. Just going back, the issue is this headline statement, and we say every slide you need a headline, stark, summary, statement up here on everything that the investor should know just from reading the headline. And this is pretty vague, ambiguous. I agree. Let's highlight 675 dissatisfied learners is really the most important number here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you talk about, let's pick a problem here. So let's just say maybe this is like 675 million people don't complete their courses. What I'm missing, Will, is the cost of the problem. Okay.
So let me try to brainstorm this one. Okay, Ed.
Yeah.
Here's exactly how we construct this statement, folks that are watching this. I want you to understand the formula. It's super easy to apply. And it works every time. You always open up with who the buying customer is. So in this case, we're going to call them online learners, right? I don't know if that's the right term, but let's say online learners. The next thing we're going to say is how much they spend, lose, etc. How much money is on the table. Online learners spend $325 billion per year for, let's see, do we have for specifically what?
Online education. That's the only thing I pulled from here.
Yeah, but it could mean anything. I mean, it's okay. Let's say students. I would say students. I just like students for a second. Students spend $325 billion per year in online education, but, and this is the turn, 90% fail to complete due to X, Y, and Z. Say it again.
Right. Perfect.
We open up with who the customer is. In this case, I said students. You could call them learners. How much they spend, how much money is on the table, not the number of them, not the percentage like 1 in 3 or anything else like that. None of that matters because it all maps back to how much money is on the table. The issue is that they fail to complete. The why is because of lack of interaction, course design, distractions, and time constraints. Now, those are 4 different reasons. Where this becomes challenging is when we get to the solution statement next, we would have to be able to explain how we solve each of those. And as you add more, it just becomes really jumbled. You do not ever need citations in a pitch deck unless what you're talking about is so incredibly unbelievable. You open up with the Sasquatch is real, and we have a business around AI enabling the Sasquatch, right? Like, unless you have something that is completely unbelievable, everyone will just take your word for it. This is not a research paper.
Solution: personalized, target-driven, project-based learning with AI and mentor facilitation. Here are the highlights: AI-guided project creation, a little blurb; human support, a little blurb; flexibility, customization, a little blurb; success metrics: 70% monthly project completion, 60% learner retention after 30 days, net promoter score NPS of over 50.
Okay, Ed, close your eyes and read it back to me.
AI. Mentoring.
And listen, founders in the audience, Ed and I joke about this all the time. It's not specific to this deck. Just and I want you got to have some humor about this stuff because this is long and excruciating as far as like this process. So you got to have some heart in it.
Okay, Will, but my facetiousness aside, I will tell you what stood out for me, and this is not a good thing to stand out. Net promoter score of 50. If you're going to use this, everyone, an NPS over 50. Like 50 is actually a fail. 80 is a pass for NPS. So automatically, and this goes to what Will, you always say, every time, every extra word, every extra thing you put in could act as a potential enemy. I say it just creates more cognitive friction. So you saw what I did, everyone. I got hung up on that NPS score. Like it arrested my attention and I forgot the rest of the pitch deck. Don't put yourself in that situation, everyone.
All right, Ed, can you go back to that solution? Ed, what I'm seeing is a whole bunch of ways to trim this down. Ed, would you be comfortable if we put all the success metrics in the traction slide?
I would be. I'll tell you what it does point out to me is that kind of their main focus is the project completion as a problem, right? And everything else in terms of, I would say, AI guided project creation, human support, and all that stuff. All those details can be put later in the deck and how it works. I don't need to see that right here.
Okay, here's the structure for how we structure the solution. Solution needs to do a couple things. At the very least, it needs to tie directly 1-for-1 with what we said the problem is. And again, the fact that I can't remember is a problem because we've been sitting here talking about it for 20 minutes. Ed, can you go back to the problem statement? I'm just going to write down what the 4 problems were.
Yes,
I know that the course completion was the kind of the meta problem interaction. We got poor course design. Okay. We got distractions and we got time constraints. Okay. All issues, but all things that in this next slide, we have to map back 1-for-1 with every one of these. So, Ed, if you go back to the solution, I would likely open up with our platform, give it like a form factor, our mobile app, our, whatever it is. So we understand exactly like how it's used or consumed. Again, I use the term form factor. Our platform drives a 70% completion rate by doing X, Y, and Z. Let me say that back in. Our platform, or whatever we're going to call it, drives a 70% completion rate. Because that directly maps to what we said was on average, like 10%? And then this is how it does it, okay? Now, here we've got a bunch of things we're kind of saying over and over For example, we're saying AI more than once. We're saying mentor more than once. Whenever I see duplicity within the text, it gives me an opportunity to just Occam's razor, like just tear all of that down until we get to only what we need. So let's dig into the solution highlights. We've got big ideas become actionable projects with clear targets and tailored preferences. I don't know why that's unique.
I don't
Can you
either.
unpack that at all, Ed?
Well, okay, let's back up. I do have experience because a lot of people don't know this about me. I was a school teacher in a private education school for 2 years. And the reason they hired me was, Ed, we don't want to work with teachers. We want to do new project-based learning. And so they
Yeah.
gave me grade 7, 8, 9, all in one class, and 10, 11, 12, all in one class. I said, teach them all using projects. And so I do understand that this is the future. But I'm telling you now, just as soon as I said this, all you need to understand, most investors, they're not going to know that because they haven't taught in the same context. So they're going to have the same reaction
Yeah.
that Will did.
And also, and we say this in other lessons, no one is going to spend this level of time unpacking. And part of it is because we're doing this in order to create lessons for folks. But typically, when we blast through this thing quickly, like every now and then we'll do a speed round so you can see how these things get digested in real time. It's brutal. But let's go back to that solution. Now, I want to make sure we don't lose sight of the mapping. Okay. This solution needs to have mapped back to four things: lack of interaction, poor course design, distractions, and time constraints. So I've got human support. Mentors and peers provide interaction. Great. So I got interaction. I'm just making a note to myself. We've got flexibility and customization. Learner type content mapping and real-time edits give learners full control. That I can't map that one to poor course design, distractions, or time constraints. Not cleanly.
Not cleanly. That's the key. I think you can infer it, but it's definitely not clean.
Okay, so let me go back to the first one. AI guided project creation. Big ideas become actionable projects. Let me pause that with clear targets. Okay, is that poor course design?
I personally think they're trying to relate it to completion.
Right, but we said specifically, and again, I'm being a stickler here to prove a point, not because I'm so worked up about this particular layout. If we said that these are the four reasons that people don't complete, then on our solution side, and this goes to everybody listening, then on the solution side, we have to have solved that. We have to point that this is the exact solve for each of the things that we said was a problem. Now, you can also start to see why trying to tether four different problems back to four different solutions gets really hard really fast, which is why if we could say that really when it comes down to it, what changes outcomes are better course design and higher levels of interaction, awesome. Let's focus there. If we can tell the story without having to worry about what we call distractions and time constraints, great.
So I got to tell you right away, this is my single biggest hangup. And I'm curious if you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just putting my investor hat on for a moment. Okay. Yes, online learning. Okay. I'm just going to accept at face value all these problems exist. Yes. And we can figure out AI to solve them. It's a brave new frontier. Great. Then I get to the solution, and you promised me AI plus mentor facilitation. Now, immediately, this is where my mind goes, Will. I go, okay, I already know people try and include mentors into everything. So it's already been done. AI is the new frontier. This has done nothing to tell me how AIs and mentors work together, how this is different. You already pointed out, how is this different than what we've already been saying? And therefore, I'm going to go to the point where I just say, you just kind of threw AI in just for AI's sake. This hasn't been thought through. Or will we say this all the time? The founders most likely have it all figured out. They are literally sitting on a baby unicorn in a rocket ship ready to go to the moon. But I can't tell from this pitch deck, and you haven't addressed why now, what's different, why you. And immediately I'm going to say, if it wasn't the fact that we're doing this as advisory, I'm pretty much like 95% checked out of this already.
Well, what I would love to have seen in the problem statement is part of the problem. If we were to narrow it down to two problems, and I won't pretend to be the founder, it's their deck, not mine, but I would have said that it's impossible for most folks to do customized learning for every single student, but that's what drives completion rates. Our AI is able to learn the student, create a customized project plan that that figures out exactly where that they typically fall down and builds and dynamically builds new content in order to keep them engaged. I made that up. I have no idea if that's even true. Maybe it is. Sounds pretty cool. But that would make me go, oh, AI, I see it.
Now let's push that even further. Yeah. And this is why I've made this sort of the point of our ongoing conversations with AI now, is because we're talking about a bold new frontier, everyone. So why not turn the mentors into AI? Tell us that all these other programs have had mentors and teachers, and now we're going to digitize all the mentors, and they're going to be customized in terms of how they respond to the students customizing their education based on projects. Right. Tell me that you set up a project, your big idea becomes a project, AI walks you through it, and then that gets sent out to AI mentors, and you get matched, and then the mentors get customized to what you're doing. We're talking, these are the huge, new, groundbreaking ideas, the moonshots, this inflection point that investors are looking for. And right now, this pitch deck, even though it could be very well, and I say this over and over again, this probably has nothing to do with the founder. They probably already thought it through, but it's not coming across.
That's why Ed and I get so fired up about this stuff, because it's a great idea. We're not sitting here saying it's not a great idea, but our biggest frustration, you see this in all these videos, is when a great idea just doesn't have the right deck to sell that idea, to present that idea. And that happens all the time. We all go through this process. I don't think I've ever seen anyone, their first presentation, like, my God, you nailed every single thing. I can't believe how good this is. I've never seen that in decades.
Let me give this founder some flowers, though. And I always come to this point in time because I want to believe the best. Like, every founder's got a better than 0% chance of going total unicorn, everybody. Going buck wild unicorn, okay? I personally think that AI is going to go into the world of either replacing live teachers, which I don't think is going to work. I think it'll get you to a certain point. But if you could figure out how to bring AIs and mentors together, create, like, say, new jobs or new expressions of mentorship and teaching, if that's what this is, oh, I get excited, Will, just based on my background.
Ed, you and I are working on this stuff right now at Startups.com, and we're building the next generation of our system. And I picture this, the mentor to become this education composer. They compose a specific plan for every single person and help kind of coach them through it. But the uniqueness is the plan's unique. For us at Startups.com, instead of giving every single person the same game plan for how to grow their startup, we change it. For if you're retail, we give you something completely unique to that. But the mentor fills in all the blanks and kind of helps pull you through. So, I mean, a lot of parallels to what we do.
Hey, reaching Asia's 43 million graduates and early career learners, personalized outcome-driven learning. So we're looking at TAM, 389 billion. So we've got global online education. So we're quoting that number again, the total, and then the growth. And then we got serviceable addressable market SAM, 43 million ICP learners in Asia. So we're focusing there. And this is what they're going to be spending with us for $18 billion worth. Serviceable obtainable market, 240,000 users in 3 to 5 years with 100K paying. So it's like a projection. And the ICP is 18 to 35-year-old graduates, early career professionals in Asia, flexible mentor seeking supported learning with real outcomes. So
a couple things I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend that I have the right answer. It's a warning for folks, not just these founders, but perhaps other folks that are listening. Your total addressable market, often when I see the TAM, the total addressable market, which you're going to get asked all the time, what a TAM is, what your TAM is, a couple just things I want to make sure you don't miss. Number one, generally speaking, your total addressable market cannot include stuff that you do not sell.
Right.
Okay. So for example, if you were to say, hey, Ed and I built an online ticketing app for concert tickets, and you say our market, our TAM, is the music industry. No, it's not. The music industry sells tons of stuff that you don't sell with this app, like songs. Like music, right? And you don't even sell that. Your industry is the concert ticketing app, or maybe more specifically, the online concert ticketing market, I should say. Almost in every single case, just is really important to know, folks, your industry is not your market. The record industry or the music industry is not a market. It's a compilation of lots and lots and lots of markets. Collectively, it's an industry. Your market is the entire size of everyone that could potentially buy your product. And if you want a simple way to back into it that works and gets you like 90% there, and you can do it in 5 seconds, take the total number of people that could potentially buy your product within reason, right? Just apply some basic filters. Multiply it by how much you would generally earn from them in a given year. And that's a good place to start with your total addressable market. I'm not saying you might not have to shape it further, but it gets you in the ballpark. So the first thing I'm going to say is if 389 billion people is the equivalent, and this is the second check valve, of how much money you would earn every year if every single student only bought from you, every single potential student only bought from you, you would earn 389 billion. What happens is somebody go, well, actually, no, that includes things like books and room and board for universities. And I'm like, well, dude, you don't sell any of that stuff, so that can't be part of your market. We got to narrow it down to the part that we could potentially capture.
Well, I'm going to make an argument here that they did do that and said they're 43 million times $420. I'm going to argue that this should have been their TAM.
Yeah.
because as we say, you're boiling the ocean, like saying we're going to go after the whole industry. Just explain there are 43 million learners in East Asia, and this is where we're going to focus. I'd rather see you do that than say, oh, we're going to take the entire online education market by storm.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, as you think about this way, guys, as you start to expand the aperture, if you will, of the total addressable market bigger and bigger and bigger, it works against you, not for you. There's a general piece of broken wisdom that founders inherit that says the bigger the market, the more interested investors will be. That is not true. It's not that they don't want big markets. They do. But they want the part of the market that you're actually going to be able to capture. Not all of it, just something meaningful. As you expand the aperture to stuff there's no way you would ever get after, it makes it harder and harder to believe that you would be meaningful. Number two, as you expand it, you get far more competitors that all play in that space.
Exactly.
Right? So what you're looking to do is you're actually looking to shrink it to a number that's typically over $1 billion. In my mind, Ed, in some markets they're just inherently big. I try to get over $1 billion or under $50 billion. I tend to find that it's a big range, but I tend to find that range usually has fewer question marks attached to how someone got there. As soon as I see something over 50 billion, my first thought isn't that it's wrong, but I should take a second look. And if it says $1 trillion, you got it wrong. Never seen someone have $1 trillion market and not have a giant asterisk next to that.
Yes. And I want to comment on this, specifically this founder, because I lived in China for 2 years. I don't know if anybody noticed, I'm Asian, so my family is.
I thought you were Canadian.
Canadian, but with a
kidding.
Korean background. And I know for a fact, Will, that education is the de facto differentiator in Asia.
Yeah,
and getting that certificate or saying, hey, but many people are dissatisfied with local educational institutions. It's the reason I started an EdTech in the platform. We were funded to do an EdTech when I was in China. And so trying to fuse that together and say, how do we actually give all these voracious Asian learners what they want so they can go apply for better jobs using AI and everything. And I think we missed an opportunity on this slide to really explain and hammer that in, because I know for a fact, because I've been in EdTech and I've spoken with EdTech investors, I had limited partners, totally agree with this.
Yeah.
They understand how important this market is. And especially if you could get Western mentors, because this was the rage. As soon as I got, if I could get Will Schroeder to show up on one of my startup talks, broadcast in China, I look like the hero. I look like everybody's going to come to me, want to support me. And so these are the opportunities. I think if we just put a little more thought into it, we could make a much better pitch deck.
Okay, I love it.
In the sense, because, Will, you always say this, if you mention a market in your problem, you need to mention it in your market slide, right? So if we're going to focus on Asia, talk about Asia, solution needs to line up. Do bottom up, everyone, in terms of calculating and what we'll talk about formula. Let's go to the how it works. So let me just overview. AI guided projects plus mentor facilitation, higher completion, stronger retention, measurable outcomes. There are 4 steps, Will. Discover your learning style, build your learning projects, get human facilitation, showcase your progress. And we got little blurbs there.
Just a heads up, and again, it's for everybody, not specific to this deck. Never use screenshots unless there's something about that screenshot that changes the outcome of the slide.
Right.
Okay. Screenshots make, believe it or not, awful eye candy if you're trying to make them illustrative of what the app does. I'll give you some examples. In a lot of cases, when people put their screenshots up there, it results in what's essentially a 1-point font, right? Especially when you look at it on mobile. Second is, if you say it's a mobile app, we all know what a mobile app looks like. You're not telling us anything by showing us a screen that has text on it, unless there's something that's there that has such unique, compelling value that it's the only way to illustrate it. A good example of that would have been Tinder back in the day when it was novel. And you were saying it's just a swipe motion. Everything else right now is a lot of text. It's Match.com. Ours is just a swipe motion. And you picture this person, their name, their age, maybe their job or whatever, and kind of like explaining the swipe motion. That's where it would be meaningful. Dropping in lots of screenshots eat up a lot of visual real estate, and they usually don't add a lot of value. Just something to keep in mind.
Let's push this into the AI age. Will, what I've been telling is if you do have one of those screenshots that you talked about that changes the outcome, make it a screenshot of the magic moment that AI has delivered and point it out. Put some arrows to it and just say, this is what the AI came up with. If it's like a conversational interface, just show parts of the conversation. But having all this, you're absolutely right, just junks everything up.
I do like the showcase your progress at the end, only because I like the idea of showing at the end of how it works that someone was successful using the product. I think that's so overlooked. In the process that we use at Startups.com is step one is always what was the in this case the ICP, the ideal customer profile. What was their problem that they were trying to solve, right? So Ed is trying to learn Mandarin, but he keeps failing. But he's yet to make it past 2 weeks at anything because he's so bored. Step two is he downloads our app. It builds a particular profile for him, a learning profile that encourages him to learn in 2-minute chunks because that's how he's most successful. Maybe a step three, and I normally wouldn't add this, would be a mentor picks up whenever he's left over and acts as a personal coach to get him through it. And then step four, your last step is always now Ed speaks fluent Mandarin on his trip to wherever. Right? Like it's opening up with what the problem was, how they used our product, and how they got the outcome. I'm not saying this is far off, but that's usually the formula that when you get that right, it's so obvious. It works so well.
Right. There's a lot to like, and I'm going to just riff off what you said. So first off, this headline, we've said this so many times.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do a headline, let me give you a pro tip, a hack, everyone. What I do is I upload all my steps on how it works into ChatGPT. And then I say, give me a summary sentence that explains everything that I've said in a headline, benefiting the customer, what investors want to see. It does it. It gives you multiple options, everything. But Will, the things that you pointed out, the fact that you're able to just break this down based on what's here, because we've had pitch decks that have been nonsensical where we can't do what you did. There's a lot to like here in terms of the AI discovers your learning style, builds you your projects. I'm getting hung up here, everyone. I don't know how AI assists here, or is it an outlet? Is it a valve that says, hey, if your AI is not doing it for you, you can reach out and these are on demand. And then I like this as well, showcase and have other people look at you and have other people learn from you, et cetera. So as far as how it works is concerned, it's clean, it's straightforward, little wordy, and could be expanded upon the magic of what we're doing with AI just because we're pushing this entire AI washing theme right now.
Whenever you're looking at where and how you want people to focus their attention, choose your fonts, choose your weights, choose your colors wisely. So here you've got, I just pick up on this stuff all the time. Here you've got a number of different font weights. You've got a number of different colors. The reason I'm bringing this up, this is the ad guy in me coming out. Tell me what you want for me to take away, where you want the focal point to me. And then bold and color that, leave everything fairly monochrome. This is small, but again, when you do these things, the reason good ads are good ads is because they pay attention to this stuff. I'm not saying this isn't a pretty slide. I'm saying as you start to think about where you want the attention to go, monochrome out everything, and then start by just highlighting the things that you absolutely want to create a focal point, and it'll naturally do some work for you.
Will, I can't believe how fast time flies when we do this.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah, it's crazy what's happening there. Will, let's summarize for this founder. Founder just recently joined us. And this happens, Will. I get emotionally invested into our founders and their projects. And because I'm close to education, edtech, I want this one to succeed. So Will, give this founder, this team, the best advice that you possibly give.
We're going to go through this deck dozens and more times. Now, I know part of that feels tedious, but what's going to happen is as we continue to go through this deck with you, what's going to happen is it's going to force you in a good way to elevate what's most important about our business. And at first, we'll be focusing that conversation and that outcome on this specific deck. But you'll start to see this focus permeate everything. It'll go into our pitches, our emails, our landing pages. Like it really starts to shape how we talk about the product, how we talk to the customer, et cetera. We're just kind of being forced to do it with an investor. But what we're really being forced to do is fast forward the discussion about our business. And I think that's pretty cathartic.